Chapter 8 of The Great Gatsby. Gatsby is dead. Wilson killed him. Need I say more? Well, let's dive in, and I'm going to put some movie clips in this video as well. So it starts off with, of course, it's that same night, and Nick has left Gatsby as he kept his vigil over Daisy at the Buchanan's house. And Gatsby stayed there until about 4 a.m. before he finally went home. So the next morning, early on, Nick returns to Gatsby's. He couldn't sleep himself. He says he tossed half sick between grotesque reality and savage, frightening dreams. In a lot of ways, I feel like that's the theme of the novel, you know, reality versus dreams. And so he ends up at Gatsby's in the daytime, and he's never been over there during the day, and he sees how it's dusty. You know, things look different in the light of day. The house isn't as clean and fancy as it appears at night in the middle of all those parties. And this is the night, or I should say the morning, when Gatsby confides in Nick and tells him the whole story, you know, pieces of the story that Nick told us earlier. But Daisy was the first nice girl that Gatsby ever loved. And he had never been in such a beautiful home before when he visited her in Louisville. And he just, one October night, you know, kissed her and sealed the deal, so to speak, when really he was so poor, he wasn't even really good enough to touch her hand. So he just felt married to her. She's the one. You might be able to read that passage on page 149 as in two ways. One, it exemplifies the social class divide, that Daisy fell for Gatsby not knowing that he wasn't worthy financially. And two, the way he views her, it's almost like he views her as property, you know, that he lay claim on her. She was of value. Other men loved her too. So I don't know, if we were in class, we would certainly discuss that. So anyway, Gatsby had to leave and Daisy couldn't go after him. She started really dating guys, 6 guys a day, you know, different dates here and there. But finally, she just couldn't wait any longer. You know, she needed to marry someone. And so she agrees to marry Tom Buchanan, and Gatsby gets the letter while he's still at Oxford. And naturally, he wrote her back. And that's the letter she's crumpling in the bathtub the day before her wedding. So interesting how it all comes together. When he returns, he's sort of in denial about everything, but he's penniless. And that's when he encounters Wolfsheim. Wolfsheim's going to take Gatsby under his wing because Gatsby's so good looking. He's got that great smile, and we'll learn more about that in chapter 9. But at this point, it's 9 a.m. They've finished eating breakfast, and there's an autumn flavor in the air. So we've gone through the summer, and we're really in late August, early September. And his servant says, "I'm going to drain the pool today, Gatsby. The leaves are falling in it." And Gatsby says, no, I've never used that pool all summer. That's kind of interesting. We had seen that line earlier, and the pool does become a symbolic setting. This is where Gatsby will be shot. Let me pause right here so that you can see the final lines between Nick and Gatsby while Gatsby's still alive.
How about a swim?
Maybe later? I'll give you a call around noon.
Fine, Oswald. I'll be at the pool. Nick? Thank you.
They're a rotten crowd. You're worth the whole damn bunch put together.
Nick says in narration, "I'm always glad that I said that. It was the only compliment I ever gave him. Maybe it was because I disapproved of him from beginning to end." It sure doesn't seem like it. It seems like Nick's in love with him from beginning to end. But he nodded politely, and then his face broke into that radiant, understanding smile. His gorgeous pink rag of a suit made a bright spot of color against the white steps. So that's that. Nick goes on into work, and he receives a call from Jordan, and they basically solidify the breakup that had started the night before. He says, "I don't know which one of us hung up with a sharp click, but I know I didn't care." So again, the story has never really been about Nick and Jordan. It's always been about Gatsby and Daisy. So when he calls in from work to Gatsby's, as he promised to do, the line was busy. He tries 4 times, and it was only noon. So Nick has an unsettling feeling. He knows something is wrong. And so this is where Nick pauses, and he breaks the fourth wall a little bit, and he's like, I'm gonna go back to the night before and talk more about Myrtle's death. So let me pause right here to show you a scene of Myrtle and Wilson from the movie.
Maybe you think you can fool me, Myrtle. Maybe you can. But you can't fool God. God sees everything.
That's an advertisement.
Someone's joined us for this video. Say hi, Patrick. Yeah. So those lines from the movie are actually misplaced. Those lines were told by Wilson to Michaelis, the coffee shop owner in the same little complex in the Valley of Ashes next to the garage. But regardless, after that interaction between Wilson and Myrtle, that's when Myrtle rushes out. She sees the yellow car and she's hit by Gatsby's car with Daisy driving. And so in the novel, Michaelis stays up with Wilson all night trying to keep him calm, and he gives him these lines that are pretty poignant. He says, he says, haven't you got a church you go to sometimes, George? You ought to have a church for times like these. And it's mentioned that they've been together for 12 years. They've been married for 12 years. And of course, we know Myrtle hasn't been very happy through those years. Anyway, it's the dog leash. Myrtle remember the dog from the earlier chapters? Myrtle had gotten some very expensive silver leather braided dog leash. Patrick, you're not going to be safe up there. So really, it was that dog leash that tipped Wilson off that Myrtle was having an affair. And whichever rich man had given her that expensive dog leash must have been the one driving that car, and must have been the one that she was running out to, and then therefore hit her. And so he says to Michaelis, when he makes this epiphany, then he killed her. So Michaelis tries to keep him calm and stays up with him all night. But by 6 a.m., Michaelis needs to get some sleep. So he goes and gets rest for a couple of hours. And then around 10 a.m. when he comes back, Wilson's already gone. He's made his long peripatetic journey into West Egg. By 2:30, he is in West Egg and he's discovered Gatsby's name. And so suspense is building as readers were wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And by 2 o'clock simultaneously, Gatsby has put on his swimsuit and he's getting into the pool. And he tells his servant, his butler, that if anyone phones, word is to be brought to him at the pool. So he's expecting really a message from Daisy, although of course Nick's the only one who's actually going to call. Nick's the only one who stays by Gatsby through all of this. Nick thinks to himself that it must have been true, that Gatsby felt he had lost the old warm world, paid a high price for living too long with a single dream. Well, we don't see the murder, and we don't see the suicide either. After Wilson kills Gatsby, he turns the gun on himself. But we find out through the perspective of, I guess, of 4 people. So it's the chauffeur who heard the gunshots. And then it's the butler, the gardener, and Nick who make the discovery of Gatsby dead in his pool. And it was after we'd already started with Gatsby toward the house that the gardener saw Wilson's body a little way off in the grass, and the Holocaust was complete. So I'm going to provide you a movie clip of Wilson sneaking up on Gatsby in his pool, but I'm going to cut it right before he kills him because the movie includes the actual shot, and it's pretty graphic. Read chapter 9 tonight.
Daisy?